Hey guys, Jordan from the Affirmation Project. So I just want to run through. This channel was designed to help people to find a bit of solace in the fact that you're not alone and there are like-minded people out there struggling with the same kind of issues. So one thing I want to talk about is things that were hard for me moving into adulthood, which for me I would class as kind of from the age of around 21, 22 until the present. I feel like before then you're still kind of stuck in the trappings of childhood and young adulthood, adolescence, before you really figure out some truths about the world. Well, for me anyway. I mean, some people might figure it out sooner. So some of the things that were really difficult for me, moving kind of out of childhood, was the fact that you realize that no matter what, you can't really opt out of the world and society. What I mean by that is, at no point when you hit 18 or 21 or even at birth, your parents don't even have this decision of whether you will participate in this theatre, like whether you will be a part of society, go to school. Obviously, your parents will probably be put in a cage if they don't send you to school. You've adopted the perceptions of what the authority standing at the front of the class is telling you is real, and what is possible and what isn't, and how you should live your life. And obviously, you've got your parents and people you look up to who have been through the same system of indoctrination as well. So your views are very narrow when you leave that system. I feel it takes a special kind of person to still be questioning things after all those years of indoctrination, maybe from the age of 5 or 6 until, if you finish university, higher education, you could be 22, 23 by the time you get out of that. So yeah, the hard thing is to realize you don't have a choice. There's no kind of free will, no freedom of choice there. I mean, the same thing could be said to, at what point did we sign a piece of paper, a contract, saying that all our fruits of our labor for the rest of our lives, the government will take half of them from us. So half of our effort will be stolen from us in the form of taxation. And if you actually factor in kind of taxes on the things you're buying, as well as, your work tax, and even in England, when you die, even your estate is taxed 50%. You're actually looking more upwards 80, 90% taxation throughout your life. So, I mean, materialistically, that's 90% of your wealth. But I think spiritually, and that takes a lot more from you. 'Cause what is wealth and money? It's a fruit of your labor, it's your time, it's your effort. So to have 90% of that stripped from you, that's very demoralizing, I feel. And as soon as you realize society's game and the way that the system's set up, that for me was one of the main drivers of kind of my depression and kind of falling out of sync with the world and the rest of society and what they want and their expectations. Now, obviously, you can just be a slave to the system and not even realize, be quite happy. We all know those people, mortgaged up to the hilt, debted up to their eyeballs, don't know any different. 3 kids to distract them. They've got piano lessons, they've got driving lessons, they've got to go to work for 60 plus hours a week just to make ends meet, to pay that mortgage. They don't have time to consider or time to even notice the fact that they are a slave. So anyone who's taken the time to consider these concepts, it can be very difficult, and it was for me. So that was probably the hardest thing to realize as an adult. I would love to opt out of society, to have another route, to not have materialism and consumption forced on us in order to make the world go round. I think we all know without consumption, the world would just grind to a halt, which, fingers crossed, it might do one day. See what else I've got on my notes here. Everything's a fraud, something I struggled to come to grips with. It started for me with the financial system. I borrowed a book from an economist friend of mine called The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, which kind of deep delves into the Federal Reserve, how it's not anything it's said it is. It's not federal, it's got no reserves. So that's just a start. It's a complete falsity and lie. The whole financial system, fractional reserve banking, I got really deep into all of that kind of stuff. Realized that we've all been duped and that no one has a clue how anything works, which kind of leads me on to my next point. And there's an interesting quote from Churchill. I mean, yeah, he's just an agent of the system, but he did drop a bit of truth in that he said if, it wasn't Churchill, sorry, Henry Ford. Ford said that if people understood how central banking works, there would be a revolution by the morning. Because people don't realize how badly they're being screwed. It's quite upsetting, the naivety of people. Well, 99% of people, most of the people listening to this channel will know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, leading me on to my next point, you realize coming into adulthood, when you're a child or even a teenager, you get a sense of it when you're a teenager. But you think that everybody's got their stuff together, like everybody knows what they're doing, and everybody has a clue about what's going on, what they're supposed to be doing, the purpose, because everything seems so set out and so simple. I mean, you get a job, you get a house, you start a family, and no one even talks about the end, really. It's Western culture anyway. It's very shunned upon to talk about death openly, to consider the possibilities around death. It's just kind of that thing you don't talk about. But basically, you realize when you wake up a little bit that adults, even more so than children, do not have a clue what they're doing. Like, nobody knows what they're doing. Everybody's just walking into rooms, having meetings, having conversations, just about absolute drivel, like just the most pointless conversations. And I know if you're like myself, you'll really struggle to be around these people and to even interact with them and create the small talk. And basically every opinion, every idea that they have is what's been pushed on them by the system, just so generic, and so every idea has been through a focus group to make sure that it's PC, and it's just, yeah, no one knows what they're doing. The general intelligence of adults is unfathomable. It's really low. I mean, just the stupidity of most of society. I know I'm going on a bit of a rant here and give people too much criticism. There are a lot of smart people out there who can see through, the fraud and what's happening to them. But yeah, I suppose I'm just struggling a bit at the moment with trying to fit into these conversations, say it at a bar or a pub, over a few beers. Just absolute stupidity at the end of the day. Let's see what else I got on my notes here. You realize people you really looked up to, like your mum or your dad, even, you realize that they're human, that they're not superhumans, and that even their paths or their lives, they might not be where they want to be, and you're supposed to take ultimate direction from these people and deciding what you want to do, which is another realization that's very daunting, because you realize how alone you are in figuring out your path and what you're supposed to be doing. Let's see what else we got here. I think the biggest realization with adulthood, and not everybody realizes this until very late in the game, that you're not going to be here forever. You will die. This will end your time here on this realm. So that comes as a big shock to people who haven't figured out their purpose yet and what to do, and are a bit lost. It can be very hard to digest that at the end of it all, if you haven't figured it out in the 70 or 80 years that you've got here, then what kind of consequences are there for that on the other side? If you haven't found your life purpose or amassed enough spiritual tokens, whatever you want to call it, then as the Pope dropped a few months ago, does your spirit actually go to the abyss? Is your divinity, your consciousness, does that not continue if you haven't used your time here wisely? Is there some kind of test? And that's another thing that's very conflicting, especially in society's current model of consumption and materialism. It kind of goes against all of that. So you realize you're in a constant uphill battle against what expectations of society are and what you would expect from yourself. I find it's more hard as the years go by to be a good person, um, just because there are so many laws and yeah, I won't go there into law and what that is, but yeah, it's just very difficult. Hopefully, hearing some of these concepts and ideas will make you realize that, again, you're not crazy. There are other people that think this way, and not everybody is happy just to be another drone or slave to society and the systems and institutions that have been put into place. Okay.